This sketchbook, still new, has already inspired multiple paintings, and I hope I can accompany you while you do your own sketching today. Today's drawings have a goal. I'm trying to paint something I very much need to practice, but have avoided till now. I'm talking about groups of characters, or fantasy art showing proper scenes instead of single figures or portraits. I was scrolling through my portfolio a while ago, and the lack of any complex scenes really stood out, quite painfully. It's time to tackle that, learn something new, and hopefully fill this gap in my portfolio with future illustrations. Do you have something like that? A type of art you admire and really want to be able to paint too, but just aren't ready for or scared of? First, let's do some composition sketches and thumbnails. Since this illustration is purely for practice, I'm free to draw whatever. So self-indulgent Dungeons & Dragons art it is. I'm drawing our actual D&D party, as we've been playing together for nearly 4 years now, and I even already had 2 of the character designs vaguely ready. The Dragonborn cleric, whom I'd painted years ago in watercolors as a gift, and our rogue, who, as our friend insists, is just a little burp. The missing link is my own paladin, somehow only showing up in random doodles I'd sketched while playing. But we'll get around to the actual design process later. First, the composition. Since we're a small party of 3, that makes this much easier. 3 is always a nice number to go with for compositions, automatically adding an interesting imbalance without bringing in too many elements or complete chaos. I had this idea of a fairy tale book illustration, with our characters posed heroically in a volcano with a giant dragon in the background. Only the eye visible, very much inspired by our current adventure. In these thumbnail sketches, I played around with the character poses, the placement of important magical weapons and effects, and especially the lighting. Our DM's been very generous with the magic items, and we're all 3 hoarders that put any dragon to shame, so I want to showcase at least some of them without overfilling the image. But there she was, my own character, still missing a proper design. As you can see, these 2 faces I'd first started sketching last night look very different. For the lighting in these, I'm using a combination of 3D models. I've been playing around in DAZ 3D, Blender, and even apps on my tablet like Magic Poser. Anything that lets me add a light source quickly is great for initial sketches. But I'm also using references by Howard Lyon to get a more subtle, artistic light reference, and an idea for how armor or cloth folds would behave. More on that later. You can see me slowly layer not only different pencils, from regular 2B pencils to the Blackwing Matte, but also a Prismacolor black, and even for the darkest shadows, a Caran d'Ache Luminance black. I really like the values that this combination can create, as we are not only going from light to dark, but from shiny, the pencils, to almost completely matte. Switching to colored pencils also takes away the temptation of erasing at that stage, and I have to commit fully to the drawing. There are different types of character design. A character design that's needed as a reference for a game model, for example, is completely different from what I'm doing here. Even more importantly, because I already know I want this staged fairy tale look, the characters will look softer or more idealized, compared to if I try to draw them in an intense, chaotic, very realistic action scene. What makes a character beautiful? Do you even want them to be classically beautiful in your art? That's something I often think about while painting. In my portraits, I love to find what the world maybe considers imperfections, however small. I'm sure you've seen variations of the 8-head proportions for characters. While this is pretty standard in illustration, I always like to remember that humans, or in this case fantasy humans, come in all shapes and sizes. While it's helpful to know that the belly button to breast distance is about one head, some characters might have a longer torso, a shorter ribcage, or short or long legs, a wide or narrow pelvis. On top of that, there's an immense range of body types, and while I follow that 8-head proportion guide pretty closely here, it's good to remember that very few people in reality actually follow that scheme exactly. Some proportion advice can be very handy though. The elbow is often at the height of the belly button and the wrist near the pubic bone. The bent arm won't let the hand touch the shoulder, so I keep that in mind for the position of the arms here. Trill, my paladin, is pretty lanky and lean, but still a fighter, so with all the armor on top, she wouldn't be looking as skinny as my comic-style doodles of her, which exaggerate her noodle arms. As I'm starting the post sketch, thanks to the composition thumbnails I did earlier, I already know that anything below the knee will be pretty unimportant. I'll probably still sketch some kind of footwear, but having the composition in mind helps me focus on what will be most important, the upper body and the arms, as they'll be illuminated by magical lights. If you're sketching general character designs, it's of course important to be more complete, but if you're designing a character for a specific illustration, the composition dictates some of those design choices. I want her upper body to be covered by a scale-like armor, to mirror what our Dragonborn is naturally wearing. A similar scale design will show up on our Aarakocra rogue, try saying that 3 times, who always covers herself in shiny jewels and necklaces, which I'll use to create a similar effect. I want the detail level between all 3 characters to be pretty balanced. I'm using simple armor models from DAS combined with photo references. This isn't about the actual design of the armor or clothing or weapons, but about how the same light that hits her face would interact with the rest of her. If I know how the shadows and highlights look on these references, and I understand them by drawing them, I can then hopefully apply them to the actual painting. Trill, my paladin, has maybe 2 brain cells to rub together on a good day. She's tall and wiry with a strong nose and an intense, even harsh look. She's a bit manipulative, self-important, but also a loyal friend and incredibly naive about the world. But how much of that fits the illustration I want to paint, the story I want to tell here? If this is supposed to look like a heroic fairy tale painting, how can I adapt the characters to fit that mood while still being themselves? I quite like the profile sketch here. I think this is the closest to how I've imagined her. Again, I have to consider the goal of these sketches. What might look good on a character portrait could be distracting in a group illustration. Like all the magical little items and trinkets we've collected, less might be more. We don't need every single detail to be correct, but use the ones that would create an interesting composition and tell a story. I've been sketching with mostly 2B pencils so far, because I'm trying to use up all the random pencil stumps that I've accumulated, but at this stage I switched to more 3B, 4B and, again, the Blackwing Matte pencil. I've been obsessed with that one as it creates such a beautiful value range and an intense near black with enough pressure. If I could take only one pencil with me, that would be the one. Needing a quick break, I began another part of the sketch process, the gold leaf elements. Gold leaf has been a part of a lot of my art lately, and I'm curious if it will suit this fantasy illustration too, or look out of place. Since Trill is descended from Aasimar, don't worry about it, it's a homebrew, she has a little halo that occasionally shows up. I tried out a solid circle version inspired by medieval Bible illuminations, but on a whim also a version in which small halo baubles orbit her head like planets. I loved the look of that and immediately knew that this was the design I would go with. The gold leaf would also differentiate the halo from all the magic items and their light effects, and I could even use gold leaf to embellish some key elements on the other two characters later. Metallic embellishments don't scan well, so this too only works for certain illustrations. If this were a character illustration for a client who needs a digital version at the end, I would stick to paint. But this is more experimental, and I'm hoping to marry my commercial illustration style with some of my personal art choices I've made lately. Maybe it's a bit gimmicky, but it's a lot of fun. To be honest, all I'm doing now is self-indulgent. Character designs don't need to be shaded in like this, and it would probably benefit me more to do 10 more quick sketches instead of this one elaborate one. But I just loved the feel of this Blackwing pencil on the Hahnemühle paper. How the layers build up to this dark hue that contrasts beautifully with the gold leaf, and how the sketchbook page looks overall. As artists, some sketchbook pages are for thinking and doodling, and some are love letters to the craft itself, and this is turning out to be just that. How do you use your sketchbooks? Are they just for practice or for quick studies? Are they your main creative outlet where you create entire illustrations that are finished as they are? Or a preparation for paintings and drawings on canvas or paper outside of the sketchbook itself? Do you have different sketchbooks for different goals like I do? still think the detailed shading helped me get a better understanding for the lighting of this scene, so that I can apply that to whatever armor design I'll end up painting. I'm also deciding on dark and light contrasts, her hair framing her face, creating the greatest value contrast from near black to brightly illuminated pale skin, but then the hair value lightening a bit, lit from behind maybe, to make the armor details on her shoulders stand out more. Small things like this are difficult to already figure out in a tiny composition thumbnail, so this slow approach to sketching gives me the room to explore different options, using the needed eraser to push and pull values until I'm happy. For a more practice-focused page, I then also sketched a bunch of weapons and armor. A lot of museums have online databases that show their medieval armor in great detail, but I also looked at historical and current paintings to just get a feel for what's already been done. None of these will actually show up in any way in the illustration, but I needed a sketchbook page to think on, in a way. This spread is definitely more of what my sketchbooks usually look like, with the rough dragon doodle on the left and all of these practice sketches on the right. With all these character design sketches under my belt, I felt more ready to tackle the actual illustration. I'll be drawing this on watercolor paper with 2 layers of gesso to create a smooth surface for acrylics, with just enough grit to build and layer the paint. I'm very excited to see how this will go, as, so far, I've only sketched in the characters with very light graphite, using 2H to 5H pencils that I rarely touch normally, since the rougher surface of the gesso scrapes off more graphite and even hard pencils leave a clearly visible mark. I've started laying down the underpainting, all in burnt sienna, burnt umber and raw umber, to hint at the warm to cool gradient in this piece. Acrylics at this stage can be used like watercolors, but watercolors that once dry don't budge and can't be reactivated. So I can create patterns and layers that might inspire me later during the painting process. I hope you got a lot of sketching or drawing done while I fumbled around on this sketchbook spread, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, and if you have any advice for the actual group illustration. I'm still a bit scared, but can't wait to properly start painting, with these sketches as a guide and inspiration. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my future art videos.